There are some fan theories that suggest that Mance Rayder is Rhaegar Targaryen in disguise. On the surface, this sounds like a goofy theory, but some YouTubers have put together some pretty convincing theories that deserve a quick glance. Because even if Mance Rayder is not Rhaegar, the idea that Rhaegar might be still alive is not that wild when you examine the facts surrounding his death. He, Robert, killed Rhaegar on the Trident. He smashed his breastplate with his warhammer, and the rubies flew like drops of blood. The rubies flying like drops of blood is a strange detail regarding the death of Rhaegar. Because if you know anything about sorcery and magic in Westeros, red rubies are often used for what is known as glamour magic, which is the kind of magic that allows for people to fake their appearance and look like someone who they are not. Melisandre uses a red ruby necklace to perform glamour magic, so she can appear to be a youthful, young, attractive woman, when in reality, she is hundreds of years old. She also uses glamour magic to fake the death of Mance Rayder, and switches Mance with Rattleshirt, aka the Lord of Bones, who is burned at the stake, looking like Mance Rayder. And this is where the first big clue comes in. What does this tell us is that a person can die as another person, and there is no point during the death of that person where the glamour magic runs off or the true identity is revealed. The whole crowd of people thought they witnessed the death of Mance Rayder and never knew that it was Rattleshirt. This means that if Rhaegar Targaryen was not actually at the Battle of Trident and someone else was there that died in his stead using glamour magic and red rubies, then the people at the Trident could have fished his body out of the water, gave him a proper cremation, without anyone ever knowing that it wasn't even Rhaegar's body the whole time. Which then leads to the question, why would Rhaegar not be at the Battle of Trident? The answer is many reasons. Robert Baratheon was passionate about killing Rhaegar because of his jealousy over Lyanna Stark. But there is no evidence that Rhaegar was equally as passionate about killing Robert. In fact, Rhaegar seems to have been heavily in favor of his father's replacement as king towards the end of the Mad King's rule. While Rhaegar remained loyal in appearance, he privately distrusted, resented, and feared his father's madness and was making plans to replace him, either politically or militarily. Rhaegar quietly gathered loyalists, most notably Arthur Dayne, Sword of Morning, Oswell Went, and Jon Connington, forming a kind of shadow court or inner circle. He is said to have contemplated calling a great council, possibly to depose Aerys or limit his powers. In A Fire and Blood, Archmaester Gildain speculates that Rhaegar may have intended to force his father to abdicate once Robert's rebellion had been crushed. This is enough evidence to support that Rhaegar could have skipped out on the Battle of Trident to focus on the things that were more important to him: the birth of his new child, Aegon VI, aka Jon Snow. Rhaegar Targaryen was starting to think that his son with Lyanna Stark was going to be the prince that was promised. If this is true, then Rhaegar would be more inclined to make sure this birth was safely completed before he worried about anything else. In fact, we know from the books that the greatest swords of the realm, Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, Sir Oswell Went, and Lord Commander Gerald Hightower were all in Dorne at the Tower of Joy, guarding the tower where Lyanna Stark was giving birth to Rhaegar's son, who would be Jon Snow. Think about this. This is either the biggest plot hole in the entire book series, or something is going on here. Because why would the realm's 3 best knights be guarding Rhaegar's secret child that no one knew about, rather than defeating Robert Baratheon at the Battle of Trident, which would also protect Lyanna Stark either way if they win? And even more strange is, why would those 3 be protecting Lyanna Stark, but only Rhaegar would go to the Trident? Why wouldn't all 4 of them just go to the Tower of Joy? Why would Rhaegar, when it's his son and not their son? It would make more sense for those 3 to go and fight Robert's rebellion, and for Rhaegar to just protect his child on his own. Or maybe they gave up on the Mad King and Robert's war and were all protecting Rhaegar's children together, which would explain why they met Ned Stark outside of the tower while Lyanna was inside the tower. Maybe they were stalling Ned Stark so that Rhaegar could escape before they got to him. And it sounds like Rhaegar could have escaped the Tower of Joy while Ned Stark was fighting Arthur Dayne, knowing that no matter who won that fight, either Ned Stark or Arthur Dayne would be the one to deliver his child to safety somewhere. In the book, Ned Stark recalls the event. "I looked for you on the Trident," Ned said. "We were not there. Woe to the usurper if we had been. When King's Landing fell, Sir Jaime slew your king with the golden sword, and I wondered where you were. Far away, or Aerys would yet sit on the Iron Throne." This implies that they were following Rhaegar's orders, not Aerys the Mad King. That they were guarding something so important, they considered it a higher priority than the king or the battlefield. This also implies that they could have squashed Robert's rebellion, but chose not to, for some mysterious reason. Lastly, it implies that they were considered vital to Rhaegar's prophetic mission, the prince that was promised. This also makes no sense that Rhaegar would think it is so important for the best 3 knights to not be at the Trident and instead protect Lyanna, just for his own self to still go to the Trident alone and die, not even knowing if his child was even born or not. Think about that. Rhaegar goes to the Battle of Trident while his son is being born and dies, not even knowing if the son was a stillborn or not. Don't you think he wants to see the son be born first? It does not make sense that he would put the lives of his prophetic child, Prince, in the hands of other people just to go fight Robert, who he wasn't even really that passionate about fighting, and then losing and dying without any confirmation about the fate of the birth. Then add to the fact that the rubies were scattered all over the Trident, evidence of glamour magic, a motive for Rhaegar to use the glamour magic to trick Robert by diverting him to the Trident and not to the Tower of Joy. Which brings us back to Mance Rayder. Now, some have pointed out that Rayder and Rhaegar are similar. I don't think that's a compelling argument, but there is some compelling arguments here. Number one, Mance wore a red and black cloak while he was the king beyond the wall. Those are Targaryen colors. Number two, both Mance and Rhaegar are musicians who play stringed instruments. Number three, Mance is constantly playing the song Dornishman's Wife, which could have been an ode to his first wife, Elia Martell, a Dornish princess. And in Winterfell, Mance changes the lyrics from Dornish man's wife to Northman's daughter, which perfectly capitulates how Rhaegar left his first wife, a Dornish man's wife, for a northern girl, Lyanna Stark. Last, Mance says he visited Winterfell to visit Jon Snow as a child a couple times, which makes sense if that was his son, and to size up Robert Baratheon while he was visiting Winterfell. Maybe he was scaling the size of his army to see if he can take his free folk army down south and reclaim the throne, waiting for the time to be right to strike. There is also the vision that Dany has in the House of the Undying, where she sees Rhaegar and a heart that is still beating. A long stone table filled this room. Above it floated a human heart, swollen and blue with corruption, yet still alive. It beat, a deep, ponderous throb sound, and each pulse sent out a wash of indigo light. The figures around the table were no more than blue shadows. As Dany walked to the empty chair at the foot of the table, they did not stir, nor speak, nor turn to face her. There was no sound but the slow, deep beat of a rotting heart. Mother of dragons, came a voice, part whisper and part moan. Dragons, dragons, dragons. This human heart, swollen and blue with corruption still alive, could represent Rhaegar being still alive. And we know Rhaegar is related to this because he is shown to her in the same vision. A blue flower grew from a chink in a wall of ice and filled the air with sweetness. The blue rose represents Lyanna Stark. The wall of ice is the wall, Jon Snow's home. This is the strongest symbolic confirmation of Jon's Targaryen parentage, R plus L equals J. He has a song. His is the Song of Ice and Fire. Rhaegar stands over a baby, likely Jon Snow, saying the baby is the prince that was promised. The baby's mother is not shown, but implied to be Lyanna. This scene ties Jon Snow, not Daenerys, to the central prophecy. A man with silver gold hair and a battle standard. Rubies flew like drops of blood. Rhaegar's death at the Battle of the Trident. The rubies from his armor fly into the river. Dany witnesses her brother's death, a turning point for House Targaryen. A great hall, the Iron Throne, but the hall was cold and dark and empty. Snow fell through the broken windows. This is possibly a vision of the fall of King's Landing that is about to happen in Winds of Winter, with the Iron Throne abandoned or destroyed. The snow may symbolize Jon Snow or the White Walkers advance south. A child swaddled in scarlet with a dragon's head. This could represent Daenerys' own future child, a reborn Targaryen, or even herself as the rebirth of House Targaryen. She also gets a vision of the Mad King screaming, "Burn them all." Dany sees flashes of Aerys Targaryen descending into madness, reinforcing the danger of madness in her bloodline, and serves as a warning. The Undying Ones whisper, "3 fires must you light, 1 for life, 1 for death, and 1 to love. 3 mounts must you ride, 1 to bed, 1 to dread, and 1 to love. 3 treasons will you know, 1 for blood, 1's for gold, and 1's for love." These cryptic prophecies have sparked endless fan speculation. The events have not fully occurred, but some interpretations include 3 fires, possibly Drogo's fire, burning Miri, maybe burning King's Landing, 3 mounts, possibly the 3 dragon riders, and 3 treasons, Mira Maz-Dur, Jorah, and some sort of future betrayal. One of the visions Dany has at the House of Undying says, "Will you make a song for him?" The woman asks. He has a song. He is the prince that was promised, and his song is the song of ice and fire. There must be one more. The dragon has 3 heads. It is entirely possible that Mance Rayder is not Rhaegar. There is evidence against this claim, such as how long Mance has been with the Wall, the times don't seem to add up correctly, his appearance doesn't seem to match perfectly, and even if he isn't, it's still entirely possible that Rhaegar did use glamour magic and was not at the Battle of Trident. So even if he's not Mance, he could be somewhere else still. That doesn't mean if he's not Mance, then he's not alive. And he could be behind the scenes masterminding his son's takeover of Westeros and making the world anew through his Song of Ice and Fire.